I would like to welcome you to the 4th lecture of Literary Forum devoted to the women in the immigration. After Renata Kornecho from Ústí nad Labem, Martina Kopp from Vienna, and Eva Hausbacher from Salzburg, we do have here now Dr. Katja Kobolt from Slovenia, from Ljubljana. And I would like to welcome you, Katja. We are very happy that you are here today.
Thank you so much, Marie, for this kind introduction. Hello, everybody in Prague and online from the Scientific Research Center of the Slovenian Academy of Sciences and Arts here in Ljubljana. First of all, I would like to thank Lucia Antošíková for her kind invitation. Thus, I'm able to share with you some bits and bobs from my research in this relevant lecture round that you are organizing in regard to women's creativity and migration. Let me now start sharing with you a slide. It will be a bit jumping around because I'll also share with you some minutes of a video by the artist Anna Ehrenstein. I will be talking for around 40 minutes, and I hope that afterwards we could engage into a discussion. So, as Marie mentioned, in my work as a researcher and also as a curator and art educator, my general research and also practical interest has been women's authorship or women's creativity in literature and arts. The conceptual background of my interest has especially been critical questioning of the intelligibility, representability, and thus discursivity of women's creativity. So how to think of and present and represent and vocalize women's creativity by the means and concepts of academic, professional, thus also literary and curatorial, as well as broader social discourses and also policies, which are framing literature and artistic production. In my work, I came over and over again to the conclusion that the existing vocabulary and concepts of literary and art theory are many times insufficient, especially when one works with artists and their expressions who and which are often in a critical relation towards the hegemonic institution of autonomous art or literature, and thus towards the hegemonic distribution of power. And as we know, academic and professional discourses are basically building up not only autonomous art field, but also broader. They spill over to the social space as well. Now, both of the artists, one a writer, the other one a visual artist that I want to talk about today, these are Dijana Matković and Anna Ehrenstein. They share critical position not only towards the hegemonic institution of autonomous art, but they also critically address the production of social differences that the supposedly not socially determined autonomous art not only reproduce, but actively co-produce. Today, I will be discussing a novel. This is 2021 novel, Zakaj, pišem, or Why Am I Not Writing, by the author Dijana Matković, and selected lens and installation-based works by Anna Ehrenstein. They both create from an unprivileged position, and in their work, they also actively address local, national, global social inequalities, especially the ones who have to do with entanglements of identity violence, predominantly gendering, migraticizing, and classism. It would be too much of a digression to elaborate on all of the reasons why within the so-called autonomous high arts, authors and artists of and from non-privileged positionalities or from so-called minority groups has so often not been presented or have been even systematically kept out. Why in history women, even bourgeois women, so rarely written or did art? Why even today, when literary and art studies and production get more and more feminized, currently the majority of students in literature and art make women, there are still little women authors or artists crowned with important awards or included into canons, academies of sciences and arts, etc. But as the gender question is intersectionally connected to the production of other differences, the question should be posed larger. Why people with experience of migration themselves or indirectly, like children of immigrants and people with working class background, are in literature and arts still rather an exception? If we are to strive for an inclusive answer to the question, who is public or who should participate in res publica, and thus in democracy, which public institutions and so also institutions of literature and art should be a part of, then these institutions should open for all, not only for the few, as it has been by now. Thus, today I will search along the works by Dijana Matković and Anna Ehrenstein for concepts, tools, and politics, which would not only describe their work, but together with their works, put a foot at institutional doors, thus they could not stay closed anymore for creativity, visibility, and voices of the thousands. Let me start with the year 1991, which, you know, in the wake of the so-called end of the history, when Yugoslavia, and the homeland of the writer Dijana Matković drifted into a violent breakup. And as Albania, the homeland of Anna Ehrenstein, along other many southern ex-socialist countries, entered the devastating processes of re-territorialization, peripheralization, and pauperization. And in this year, feminist historian John Wallach Scott asked critical questions upon conceptual frameworks in historiography. I want to refer especially to her reflection of the concept of historical experience, which, as you see at the slide, if you want to read in original. So for Scott, experience is the object of historical analysis, always already a discursive construction. In her view, historiography should not focus on the experience per se, or on the reproduction of historical knowledge, but rather on the production of this knowledge, meaning the intelligibility and discursivation of experience itself. Scott advocates for the study of the formation of subjectivities. She sees the historian's task in the historization, this is in disclosing the contextual framework for the discursive constitution of experience itself. In one of her other studies, in which Scott considers the category of gender within historiography, she writes, "We must ask more often how things happen in order to find out why they happen." Thus, today I ask about the ways Dijana Matković in her writing and Anna Ehrenstein in her fine art works produce by language and visual means the context or where the experience of living and producing as post-migrant women author and artist to be visible and heard and to have consequences. But what I mean when I say post-migrant? The term post-migrant originates in German cultural migration theory. As you know, Germany has since a long time depended on migrant laborers. Even if migration during Nazism, even forced migration and forced labor, has had a long tradition in Germany, the cultural self-understanding and policies of the country long denied that Germany is so-called Einwanderungsland, or a country to which a lot of people immigrate to. Only the 2005 immigration law, in its wording, opened up this hegemonic cultural self-understanding, and those official discourses have gradually changed. Today, we can read on the front page of the German Federal Ministry of the Interior and Community that more than a quarter of all people in Germany have an immigration history. Among children under age of 14, even more than 1/3. That is why a modern and open immigration and integration policy is central to social cohesion in Germany and also to the economic success of the country. One of these children who have an immigration history and who grew up between Germany and Albania was also Anna Ehrenstein. In her work is Anna Ehrenstein, with her own words, concerned with diasporic narrations going beyond her own intercultural experiences. That Germany is, at least at nominal political level, gradually embracing the fact that many of its people are not so-called Bio-Deutsche is a result of long pressures and fights that have so-called Gastarbeiter and their children who were raised and educated in Germany, but who are many times still constructed as foreigners, fought for many decades. The works by Anna Ehrenstein are at the same time fruits and weapons of these fights for society to change towards less inequality. As Neika Foroutan, professor for the research of integration and social policies at the Humboldt University, Berlin, underlined, the term post-migrant denotes cultural, political, institutional, structural, and social transformations at the core of social negotiation processes that take place in the post-migration phase. Thus, today, in my first step, I operationalize the concept of post-migrant to pay attention to modulation of post-migrant experiences by Dijana Matković and Anna Ehrenstein on the level of content, form, and construction of artistic subjectivity and their selected works. Following Errol Yildiz' suggestion that post-migrant thinking is critical engagement with hegemonic knowledge production, a revision of what has been told and what has been left out, I trace the identity violence at work in the construction of social differences, and second, I reflect on technologies of subjectivity in the textual and visual fabric as gestures of resistance. In other words, I'm interested in how the two artists, one a writer, the other a visual artist, present the pressures of identity politics and how they resist them. What the works by the both artists share is the register of autofictionality. While autobiography as a genre relies on the assumption of identity between the extratextual I, this is the author, the narrative I, the narrator, and the narrated I, the narrated character, autofiction, in contrast, acknowledges that these gaps between the three narrative instances, and as such, through these gaps, it opens up a space for a critical examination of the constitution of subjectivities, as well as the resistance to the multiple pressures of identity violence, like gendering, migrantization, racialization, and classism. In their works, both artists productively play with the three narrative instances. With the extratextual I, they produce an extratextual instance of authorial and artistic subjectivity. Dijana Matković, as a writer, critically examines intimate, personal, social, and material difficulties and troubles she, a child of immigrant workers from Bosnia and Herzegovina in Slovenia, and a freelance writer and translator, has encountered in her work and life. Through self-featuring in her videos as a visual artist from Global South, who produces and who is at the same time produced by hegemonic discourses and politics on Global South, Anna Ehrenstein intervenes into these discourses. In staging themselves in production of their literary and artistic practice, both artists modulate the narrative I, the narrator, from wherefrom they narrate, as an extension of their extra-textual I, or of their artistic subjectivity, by intensive intertextuality. Intertextuality. So Anna Ehrenstein mixes original footage or objects also within her installation projects, which are often featuring herself captured by smartphone camera, like a selfie. And she mixes this with found footage. She appropriates events from anti-colonial history and quotes from critical post-colonial theory for her producing of artistic subjectivity. Dijana Matković similarly weaves the narration on her life experiences as an intertextual web of quotes and thoughts by different, mostly so-called minority writers like Didier Eribon, Edouard Louis, who both also very much rely on autofictionality, Alexander Hammond, Danilo Kish, Virginia Woolf, James Baldwin, and others. Both Matković and Ehrenstein include in their works also quotes and concepts from critical research in theory and global, social, racial, and especially class inequalities, and how they are produced and reproduced through different systems, from schooling, education, and institutionalization of literature and artistic practice to pop cultural contents, discourses, and politics. Both artists produce in this way a hybridized narrated I, the narrated character, with which they not only claim singularity, but also universality. In the first part of her novel, Dijana Matković recollects her childhood as a child of Bosnian Herzegovinian workers in Slovenia, at the time when this was still a federal socialist country of Yugoslavia, and later in post-socialism and the transition to capitalism, which due to destruction of economy and of socialist welfare state, pushed her family, along many other people, into poverty. Matković repeats the opening quote, "I am one, but there are thousands of us." This is a quote by Bosnian Herzegovinian author Faruk Šehić through the novel, and she declinates again and again this quote in different stages and registers. The narrator, migranticized, gendered, and class discriminated author modulates the narrated I, again, migranticized, gender, and class discriminated author through reflection of the troubles of finding a voice that would be heard and taken seriously in an autonomous literary field, and thus also beyond in social space. What both Dijana Matković and Anna Ehrenstein actively address, especially by their insisting on talking in the names of the thousands, and by the formal ways of intertextuality, which is a pastiche of critical discourses, pop cultural narrations and images, literary productions, and other sources, is appropriation. In her novel, Dijana Matković addresses appropriation on many instances, especially in terms of the imposter syndrome, of her as an author, as a person from a minority group, her feelings of non-belonging, shame, self-love and esteem, non-functional relation towards oneself and others, anxiety, depression, all bound to the impossibility to live fully, to find and claim her voice, to be visible, to be heard, to be active, to have agency. The narrator declinates 15 troubles or rules she, as an author of unprivileged positionality, especially of working class background, has been confronted with. I quote, "Alongside the demands I make on myself in terms of writing, there are also the demands and rules of the cultural environment in which I find myself, which dictate what can be written or spoken about publicly and when, by whom, and in what way." Dijana Matković, as the extra-textual author, her narrator, and her narrated I break all of the 15 rules. Otherwise, she would not have written the novel at all. She would not have been an author, wouldn't she have broken those rules? Among those rules, she breaks also the rule, you must not speak on behalf of others. Speaking on behalf of others is considered as appropriation of individuality and authenticity. And with that, let's move to Anna Ehrenstein. Anna Ehrenstein has dealt with the construction of authenticity in several of her works. I focus today here particularly on her 2020 work entitled Zen for Hijabi. The work consists of a plinth with 2 busts of a white woman, which are 3D prints of the artist's face facing each other, and 2 smartphones, one of which is attached to a hijab as a practical mobile phone holder. It's a lot of times you can see white girls and women holding their smartphone in this way. And on the smartphones, so basically these 2 smartphones are split screen for video, which is a split screen video. And all of this stands in front of the lenticular print of collages of liquidized patterns and social media snippets from, and this all hangs from the clothing rack. You have an installation view photo on the slide. Now, back to the title, Zen for Hijabi. The term hijabi is composed of a ho, as a person who uses their body appearance, including sex, for material gain, and hijabi for a person who wears a hijab. And the term as such refers to the process of othering, obviously. In the video that we will have a look at it in a moment, the background of artificial leopard skin and AI-generated red roses image liquefies and moves endlessly in the background of the artist's selfie, who lies topless on this background and talks about math loss parameters of authenticity. The filtered selfie, whether taken by the artist herself or taken from social media, is a recurring element in Anna Ehrenstein's work. Following Christine Lawrence and Carolina Cambre, who examined gendered perceptions of filtered selfies, the selfie attests to a visual practice of checking or anxiety in relation to supposed perceptions online and offline. The images that follow the artist's selfie in the videos and for hijabi are a medley of found footage, all dealing with the question of authenticity, from comments on fake fashion items to appropriation of ethnic cultural codes and blackfishing as an appropriation of looks by Black people of color, etc. We will be seeing now 3 minutes of the video Zen for Hijabi. Obviously, this is now shown not as a split screen. What you will see, it's normally within the installation shown as a split screen and here merged into one. Okay, so enjoy.
I get on Instagram today and I see I got a bunch of DMs, a whole stack of messages, right? And quite a few people asking me to check this woman out. They're like, Angel, this girl is actually white, check her out. So I have a look and I see what appears to be, I don't know, a medium brown to dark skin looking black woman or a dark skin looking mixed race girl, you know, with long braids. But as you look closer, you realize she's not black. So I sit there for a while and think to myself, wow.
It's 3D robot, some kind of 3D robot.
Under the soul, a lot of people, I keep telling you guys, this is the only way to tell. I mean, they're getting these Yeezys down to being perfect. Like, it's the same thing. There's no other way to tell besides under the soul, which eventually they probably will fix. But for now, this is the only way, and you can't undo the
One is weak and rich and moist. How does that happen? Nothing is original. Nothing is original. Nothing is original.
When do the stereotypes surrounding the culture become a reality? You might say that all cultures are meant to be creations. Maybe what's not so important is the cultures contained in it, but rather who controls the development and perpetuation of these myths.
But which one is real, which one is fake? This is one of them. This is another.
That's 4-4, right? Right?
Yeah,
Well, we have to have a tiebreaker.
we need to have it.
Okay, so as you have seen here in the video, it has a lot to do with fake and original goods. And in one of her public talks, Anna Ehrenstein reported on the production cycle of so-called original and fake goods, which are sometimes even produced in the same factories with the same materials and by the same workers. And even in terms of their consumption, distribution, and translation, originals and their counterfeits are interconnected and interdependent. Besides the production of fake goods, for which Ehrenstein's homeland Albania serves as the biggest European import way, so like the biggest ports where the fake goods are coming in, what seems to interest both artists, Ehrenstein and Matković, more is the appropriation of subjectivities into fakes. So they're interested into the social process through which some people are transformed into lesser people or not really people, whether by the ways of gendering, migranticizing, and importantly, by the class differences. As Lisa Premiak has aptly commented on Anna Ehrenstein's work, for Ehrenstein, the question isn't what is real and what is fake, but rather who can afford to wear both. Indeed, the production of authenticity for both Anna Ehrenstein and Dijana Matković lies in power in the question of who and what has the performative power to transform something or someone, objects or people into original or a fake. And this also contains a critique of autonomous art and literary system. But let us, in conclusion, because I was now talking about appropriation, ask the question, what is appropriation? I think it's quite useful, the proposal Homi Bhabha had in a roundtable discussion 2017 Art Forum, where he, departing from Walter Benjamin, advocated not for appropriation, but rather to understand appropriation as a translation. I quote, "Whether it's a text or a previous historical moment or a previous identity, there is something that precedes what is translated. Unlike appropriation, translation is a relation that does not immediately prescribe a kind of original. What precedes is not seen as the appropriate or original text." And thus, with that, I want to come to a conclusion in which I appropriate Homi Bhabha's definition of appropriation as a translation. In my appropriation, I borrow not only from Bhabha, but also from sociologist Slobodan Karamanić and artist Manuela Unverdorben, who wrote on translations of so-called Balkan world music and turbo folk. Like they weren't calling them translations, so they were still writing about appropriation. And they started their analysis of Balkan and turbo folk, just to give you some context. In the 2000s, as you might know, in the West and thus also in Germany, like Balkan beat was very much, which was a kind of, you know, Balkan music made pop cultural, was very popular and very chic, playing in different clubs and so forth. A lot of DJs that made careers out of that. Whereas on the other side, turbo folk was reserved for immigrants, for gastarbeiters, for people of working classes. So they basically, Slobodan Karamanić and Manuela Unverdorben asked about why is this so? Why this through the appropriation machine, through this transformation machine, some production then becomes eatable and kind of, consumable by the higher social strata, obviously possessing more capital. And their basically analysis of this, the starting point was the materialist thesis that the logic of capitalist production and commodification subsumes all difference under the aegis of a general equivalence, which is money. And they note then that in order to be able to extract surplus value, capitalism must pre-produce, re-articulate, and reinvent difference. So the production of the social differences, so like in our case would be, like in the case of Slobodan Karamanić and Manuela Unverdorben, would be the difference between the low turbo folk and the high Balkan beat on the one hand, and in our case it would be the difference between the bourgeois, educated class, bio-Slovenian or bio-Deutsch people producing artistic expression and literary expression, and people from the working immigration background who also write. In this production of differences, yeah, it's what Karamanić and Unverdorben note. It's a precondition in order to be able to valorize and extract the capital out of it. So Dijana Matković and Anna Ehrenstein, with their work, do not only disclose the production and reproduction of the social differences, but also how they are made useful in terms of governance, of hegemony of some social groups over others. However, with their works, they do not search for an anterior, for something prior to the translation process. Rather, they embrace the translation process itself, what I want to call productive over-identification. Your Čefurka, Bosanka, Kanakin, migrant, or a whore has been fighting for a voice, for visibility, for agency, and she will not give it up, ever, because there are thousands standing and coming with and after her in wildfires. So this is what I think both of the artists, teach us, and what I read from and see in their work, and how much I also prepared for my talk today. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed the talk and that we can come into a discussion.